We're discussing today navigating parenthood on Instagram. It's a topic that I don't see a lot of people talk about.
As a parent of two very young kids, it's a really important topic to me.
It really is.
Yes, it's kind of crickets when we talk about children and safety on Instagram. And I know it's because not a lot of people are focused on that. Everybody's focused on growth, but there is a strong concern about the safety of those that are falling to the age of 13. That is the required age that you're able to have an account on the three most popular social media platforms right now. We're talking about something that kind of affects us all, not only if you're a parent, but probably if you're a guardian, if you're a teacher. We're going to keep the conversation to Instagram. Do you believe Instagram is doing enough to protect our children as active users on the platform? Like, let's say both of your kids were 13. Do you think that a lot of these features that they introduce and accessibility is actually helping to make Instagram more safe of an environment for our children?
The one thing is that I'm not fully aware, like in terms of Instagram with regards to children, of what type of policies or what things they do have in place at the moment. But I always feel that there is something that they could always do better. It could always do better with regards to that aspect. With regards to Instagram, we always hear these updates that are happening and so on and so forth. Some of them are just like meaningless updates, depending, but these updates within this type of realm would be definitely something that would have my backing, because it's definitely something that is very, very important, especially as a father. I would like to have something in place other than just the type of aspect that you could change it in terms of the private and not the public aspect of it. If they click on, let's say for example, if they are of a certain age, that they only have access to certain aspects, whereas we have access to a little bit more. So maybe like gradually getting into it, maybe certain things that they do have access towards. And then as a father, it's hard because you do want to kind of monitor and make sure that whatever they're looking at or so on and so forth, it's still within the realms, and it's not like it's tough.
Yeah, and it's not going to get any easier, unfortunately. As they grow, social media becomes more in depth into their current lives. Alicia, in regards to this question, do you think Instagram is doing enough to protect children in this environment?
Absolutely not. And I'm going to preface this by saying I get it because I'm the parent who runs an account, I have another account that has some of my kids a little bit more prevalent on there. But I'm seeing like kids, really young kids, doing a lot of video content, like their faces all over social media that are like 6, 7, 8, maybe even younger. So I know that there's an age requirement and I know the parent sets it up. But I worry more so about the safety of the child. Like even my children, like even our family friends who don't know our kids, meaning like they've seen them on social media, will say like, hey to our kids in public. Thankfully, I'm always with them, Mama Bear. But like, imagine that happening to your child on a large level. Like in Jamaica, a girl, like I'm at breakfast and a girl like kind of walks over to the table and she's like, hey, I follow you on social media. Imagine that happening to a child, a 5, 6, 7-year old who is a big now social media star. I get it because it can pay the bills and all these things, but just imagine the exposure that you're putting your kids out to. So I want to start there, that I feel like although there is an age requirement, there's lots of loopholes around that, and people even younger are getting on here. So that's my first piece. The second piece is I really think the way that YouTube requires you to like check a box, this content is made for kids or not, that's a simple feature I feel like Instagram could add to their content before you post. They add all these other things, add topics, add location. Just check a box. This content is made for kids or not. And I think that would at least help. Because you're right, YouTube Kids, you get on there sometime and you're like, this is not kids appropriate. I know there's always loopholes and there are always going to be ways around it, but there's little things that I think could be put in place that would help kids have an experience on social media. Because in a lot of ways, like you just talked about, Heston, you don't want your kids to be left behind. Like, eventually my daughter's actually hired in my business. She doesn't do, she's not in front of the camera a lot. She's a lot of times behind the camera helping me shoot content. But I mean, this could be her business one day of what I do. And so I want her to be prepared and understand how it works and understand, different things and ins and outs, but it's not as safe as I think it could be for kids to have an opportunity to learn about it. For me, I think Instagram could do a little bit better, but I also think we as human beings, as parents, could do a little bit better in the way that we're putting stuff out there and the way that we're monitoring what things we have. While Instagram could be doing better, I think about it this way. We have to think through, it's the parent's job first, the platform job second.
I love the fact that you ended with that, because I usually go back and I say that to people that don't like what I have to say. And I'm like, well, you know, even when it comes to education, people say, oh, it's the teacher's fault. No, the child learns at home first. They have to learn and pick, and they're learning whether you tell them or not, because they're watching your habits, they're watching what you do almost 24/7. So a lot of that comes from home, and if we open up and have these conversations with them at an early age, maybe I should say early age, but the appropriate age for that specific child, then we could alleviate a lot of these issues that we would have when they are actually ready to join social media. And that was something, you know, once again, I talk from experience with my own child who's 13. We've had lots of conversations. She'll ask me about certain things she sees online or in the movies and in TV. I'll literally pause it and have a full conversation. Sometimes she tries to avoid it because it turns into a daddy lecture. And I understand. But I prefer to have these conversations than to ignore it or dismiss it, because if she doesn't have it with me or her mom, she's going to have it with somebody else that might give her the wrong information. These conversations, you know, social media is about being social. It also takes place under the roof that the child and the parents live in. So we got to be open to that. To answer this question, I want to go down a list. I've actually put out a reel today that highlights a lot of the features that Instagram does have for parental control. So first one is filter inappropriate content. Limit messaging and tagging. You can set up private accounts for the child. Restrict certain DM features. Monitor comments. Approve followers, and set time limits. I must admit, I like what I hear from this list. This gives me control that I can actually feel comfortable, think that I'm helping to create and establish a safe environment on Instagram. As Alicia stated, there's going to be certain things that get through. There's certain ways and loopholes that they might come across certain content that I might not be able to protect them against. But that's when the conversation actually occurs, where they can stop and ask you a question. Hopefully there's a relationship where they're comfortable enough to do that. But I will say Instagram, they do focus on children's safety. Mosseri does come out every now and again and speak about new updates. Nobody ever reposts those posts about Mosseri putting up those. They always talk about the reach and the growth. As soon as he puts up one of those, it's a big story. When he comes out with these, it's crickets once again. They are there. And I would have to say, in competition to some of the other platforms, I feel like they are doing slightly better because they're a little bit more transparent about it. Whenever these features do come out, he usually comes up and speak about it. There's blog posts about it and stuff like that. So I will say, I think that they are doing a good job. But as James said, there's never enough. You know, you could always do better. You could always go above and beyond when it comes to kids and teenagers in that age group. For regular viewers, we like to play a little game called Would You Rather. The way this game works is I'll present my guests with two options for them to choose from. You in the audience could play along as well. Go ahead and put in a comment your option between the two that I give. All right, so would you rather at age 13, your child joins Instagram, 1, with a private account, or 2, with all parental settings enabled, all of them that I listed prior? Which one would you prefer? A private account, that's 1, or 2, all of the parental settings enabled?